This is Continuum Drag, a weekly podcast revisiting television sci-fi, fantasy, and everything in between. This week, Timecop, episodes 1 and 2.
If Gull was the Ripper and he was killed on November 7th, how then could he murder his fifth and final victim, Mary Kelly, 2 days later?
That, Officer Hemmings, is a true time paradox. And I'd suggest the source of your ripple.
Someone must have gone back and taken out Jack the Ripper.
Well, Mary Kelly still died, so obviously this guy is no saint.
Maybe he went back to take the Ripper's place.
If you're right, I don't want to think about the domino effect this sick puppy could have on history.
Welcome to Continuum Drag, the podcast traveling back in time via forgotten sci-fi television. I'm Luke, here's my co-host, the man with the jork tan, Jordan.
Hold on, I'm the man with the jork tan?
Yeah, you're jork tan Jordan.
I've been called worse.
Summertime, you got those jorts on, you're out there showing off that tan. You don't know whether they're calling your name or they're saying jork tan at you.
Jork tan. I thought you were saying Jorktown, like Jork. I was like, jork? What is a jork tan?
You get that jork tan in Jorktown.
Mm-hmm. Hey, but I have something that's real. It's a line I enjoyed on this show. And someone said, what's your safeguard? And then our main character, the real cool guy, goes, the only safeguard I need, my instinct.
That's right.
And I was like, someone wrote that.
The more I watch this character, the more I'm like, John Logan, he's my buddy Jordan. You got so much in common with him.
No, you didn't think that. You thought, hey, he's got a lot in common with every other cool white male character we're supposed to like between the eras of like 1975 and 1995.
I mean, he's got the same jork tan as you, so.
I keep hearing Jorktown.
All right. Well, this week we're watching a new TV series, Timecop.
Timecop. Jack Logan. Solving crimes. Time crimes.
I'm assuming you never saw the show, but did you ever watch the Jean-Claude Van Damme movie?
Okay, I have a couple confessions to make to you, Luke.
No, great.
One, I think I've only seen parts of Timecop, the movie with Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Nope.
I think it was like one of those things that would play on TV all the time, so I've seen probably 75% of it, not in order. Now, we were talking about this show whenever it was, months ago. This is not the show I thought it was. I thought I've seen this show because it was a show that is very, very similar to this, that in the same time period, and I was like, hey, I'm going to remember this. And then I started watching this, and I went, no, I haven't seen this show. So I don't know what that other show is.
You've mentioned this show for years, and I always with this like soft idea that you would enjoy it, but I guess that because you thought it was something else.
Yeah, it was a different show. As soon as, like, 30 seconds into this, I was like, this is not the show I watched.
All right. Well, did you know then that the Jean-Claude Van Damme movie and also this movie is based on a comic?
I did know that, yeah. A Dark Horse anthology series.
Yeah, see, you know a lot about old Timecop.
I know a little bit, you know?
Did you know enough of the lore from the movie to pick up on it in the show, or is this all like, you don't know any of the rules?
Well, I didn't know the rules, and I'm assuming you know the movie.
I've seen it for sure. I definitely remember the like major rules.
How close is this to the movie? Like all that the universe and the rules and the world we're living in.
Oh, they're definitely like, we don't see any of the like consequences of the rules, but they seem to be mentioning them in these episodes.
That's actually a nitpick thing I have. We could talk about later.
And the method of time travel is the identical. And I couldn't tell you for sure if the set for the Timecop headquarters is identical, but I feel like it must be fairly similar. And then,
cylindrical.
Cylindrical. Spinning. Desks that spin.
Yeah.
Well, Timecop, the series, ran on ABC from September 22nd to 1997 to July 18th, 1998. Actually stopped after 5 episodes in mid-October, and then, you know, the rest were like dumped in the summer, but you get the idea.
This feels like it aired way earlier, though, doesn't it? Doesn't this feel like it should be about 1992?
I mean, it's a good question. It's a very odd little show.
Mm-hmm. You just think of other things that were like, didn't The Sopranos start in like 1999?
Yeah, probably around then, huh? Probably
like,
98
So like a
even.
year later, this show looks like it's 30 years older than that.
The effects are a little better than that.
Yeah, fair enough.
Well, Jordan, do you want to know what the current events were during Time Cop?
Yeah, let's hear it.
That's September 22nd, 1997 to July 18th, 1998. October 16th, the first color photo was on the front of the New York Times.
Oh, weird. It was black and white photos?
Pretty late, eh? Pretty late for them to get a color photo.
Yeah. Interesting.
June 25th, Windows 98 released.
I like that. It seems like in these what happened, it's always a Windows related thing.
July 5th, Japan launches probe to Mars, becoming the third spacefaring nation.
I remember that.
And born in this period of time, on July 8th, not one, but two Nepo babies.
What does that mean?
Two Nepo babies on the same day, Jordan. It was Jaden Smith and Maya Hawke.
Oh. Wow. Everyone's very young.
Everyone's very young, it's true.
Nepo babies. I never heard that term before.
I think it's popular with the Gen Zs. I heard it somewhere.
Is that right?
That's how they refer to, like, when they find out, like, one of their favorite stars is turns out has two, like, very, like, blue linked Wikipedia parents.
Right. That's how you and I got this podcast.
Yeah, nepotism definitely got us where we are today.
Your dad invented the podcast.
In 1985.
Yeah. That's right.
And Jordan. One last thing for you on as terms of what's happening in the world. There are 5 continuum drag shows that we watched during this period, and I believe 2 series and 3 TV movies.
Okay.
How many can you guess?
I'm gonna say Freaky Links.
Okay. No.
What's that one where they're in a computer?
Where they're in a computer. Oh.
And Santiago's the bad guy?
Yeah. Harsh Realm.
Harsh Realm.
No.
Is that... Oh, that's not one? A Space Above Beyond.
No.
I'm doing really well. I'm gonna just keep going. And we watched some TV movies. Was one of the TV movies that one where the aliens want to make babies?
No.
Remember that one?
I
was
do.
It the,
what was that called?
Was it the Baby Time Monster Alien? And remember there was what was the TV movie where the guy imagines a dinosaur, a robot dinosaur that eats cars?
Oh,
Is
yeah. What was that one called?
Robot dinosaur.
Crunchosaurus
guy.
Rex.
Crunchosaurus Rex. Yeah. Crunchosaurus Rex. Anyways, I'm not going to get any of these. What were they?
November 1st, Sleepwalkers.
Oh, Sleepwalkers. Yeah, that was forgettable.
December 28th, Justice League of America.
All right, no one will remember that.
January 27th, Warlord, Battle for the Galaxy.
Oh, yeah. Or the Osiris Chronicles.
Or these shows. And then, I don't know, I stopped writing down the dates for these, but in May, Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh, I forgot about that, too. All these are very, very forgettable.
And then finally, in June of 1998, Invasion America.
Oh, the cartoon, right?
That's the one.
What was his glove called? Was it the Exeter?
Was it I don't remember what it was called. I just remember
Yosh. He had a special glove and he Luke, it's literally only funny for you and I.
Yeah, you should say Yosh to everything. It's great.
Yosh.
I think I recently discovered that might actually just be Japanese, and it might actually be just Japanese for, like, cool.
Oh, yeah, that's not as funny.
Anyway, that's what was going on in the world during Timecop.
I feel like I'm there.
You've gone back.
Yeah.
You're waiting for Sleepwalkers to premiere. You can't wait to see this new Nick Fury TV movie.
Mm-hmm.
You're about to turn 25.
About to turn 25?
That's not
no,
right.
It's 19... We're turning, what, 15 at this time?
98?
We're 15, 16 years old.
Something like that, eh?
Yeah.
Anyway, here's the IMDb summary for Episode 1, A Rip in Time. Jack Logan travels to 1888 London in pursuit of a homicidal genius who has taken the place of Jack the Ripper.
Okay, a few things. I think that's pretty accurate. A few things to say. First, I didn't realize this is what the show was going to be. I kind of thought the show was going to be people from the future were coming back to regular time, sort of trying to stop the timeline a la Terminator. That's what I kind of thought it was going to be like.
Oh.
And then when I realized we're going to get a Jack the Ripper episode, the first thing I thought, now I haven't looked ahead. I don't know what the episode's are going to be going ahead. But if there's an episode where they go back and they have to stop someone from killing Hitler, I'm going to flip my lid. I'm telling you now. That better not be an episode.
You're so mad they stole your idea.
No. It's so dumb. And the reason I mention that is because this Jack the Ripper is such a weird well for writers to keep going down. I think the last time we saw it was Kolchak.
Yeah. Classic Kolchak.
And it just is like, I don't know why it's just so dumb. It's like, Jack the Ripper. We'll figure out who he is. Who cares? Stupid.
It's a mystery that's gripped audiences for lifetimes.
I don't think it is anymore. And also, this episode has, God bless the production designers and stuff. They clearly didn't have a lot of money for like making 1880s England. So there's a lot of atmosphere and stuff to kind of cover the, like, you can clearly see the seams on the walls to the floor. But these are some of the worst London circa 1880s accents I've ever heard.
Well, that's where we begin, in the year 1888, in the old town of London, England. And the day.
Can we do the rest of the podcast in those accents?
Yo, you want to do them?
Yeah.
I can't.
Oi, I'm a prostitute. That's how bad it is.
I like that they give you the exact day, November 7th.
That's right. Because for all those Ripper heads, they're like, oh no, that's the day Susie Johnson got stabbed.
And Jack the Ripper is just about to kill his fourth victim. But what's this, Jordan? A man with night vision goggles?
Yeah.
He's carrying an electricity knife?
Yeah. Yeah, he is carrying an electricity knife. What do they call it later on? They call it something very specific. It's like I know the power is it can cut through anything. That's basically, it's a lightsaber.
Yeah, it's like an energy knife or something. I don't know.
Can we know? I know we're going to go through the plot, Luke. Can we just talk about it now? Does this guy's motivation make sense?
Of course, Jordan. He wants to make sure that Jack the Ripper is remembered as history's greatest homicidal genius.
Right. Okay. But here's my point. We were joking about this 3 seconds ago. We all know who Jack the Ripper is. He is one of the most famous serial killers, the first.
But we don't remember him as a homicidal genius, Jordan.
So that's this specific
This
difference.
is the specificity this killer has.
But let me explain this. I'm sorry, I know we have to get into the plot, but it doesn't make any sense. So what we're going to learn real quick is this is a guy who's time traveling, who wants to take the place of Jack the Ripper to do many more murders than Jack the Ripper did, and thus become much
many
more famous.
5 times as many.
5 times as many.
He says specifically he's going to do 5 times. He's going to kill 5 times as many women, and that will make him a homicidal genius.
But here's what I don't understand. So let's say he's done. Let's say he kills 5 times as many women, and then he goes back into the future and he enjoys his press.
Yeah, he just enjoys that people think Jack the Ripper killed a few more people.
But they don't know it's him.
No, they don't.
So what does it matter? Why don't you just go into the future and say that was me? Well, it doesn't change anything.
He's just looking forward to opening a textbook, and then someone will have written, Jack the Ripper, history's homicidal genius, killed 25 people.
Okay, so I'm not wrong. That is the motivation.
That's it. That's all he's got. That's all he wants to do.
Okay. So anyways, that's what we need to know. This guy, that's what he wants, and he's going to go back in time to do this for reasons.
Yeah. He shows up. He immediately snapped the real Jack the Ripper's neck. And then the lady's just like, you saved me. And he's like, no, I didn't. And he stabs her to death.
So, but why didn't he just do this? Why didn't he just go back to any part in time? Because I guess the point is he has the technology so he could be a more effective killer. He could have gone back in any point in time and done a rash of murders and just said, hey, I'm Joe Johnson. Remember me in history.
No, but he wants to give the credit to Jack the Ripper. It's very important to him that Jack the Ripper get the credit.
I don't understand.
It just, he wants to make sure Jack the Ripper gets his due.
But it won't be Jack the Ripper. It's him.
But we won't know that, the public.
All right, sure. Anyways, yes, he goes kill this prostitute. It just doesn't make any sense.
We cut then to 2007 at the U.S. Time Enforcement Commission. Officer Claire
That's so hilarious.
Officer Claire Hemmings is testing her new invention, the Subliminator, on Officer Jack Logan.
And I recognize this actress, and I had to look her up because I was like, I know her face. And I only really know her from one role. And she plays I think it was called the Ice Princess in Batman Returns.
Oh, yeah.
And she has my favorite line in that movie, which is her character is going to be lighting the Christmas tree. And she has like a fur coat on, and she takes her fur coat off, and the crowd like sort of like cheers, like whoops and hollers because she's a pretty lady. And she goes, how about that? And I don't know why. That made me laugh in 1992, and it's made me laugh every single time I've seen that movie. How about that? Anyways, that's what she's from.
Well, how about that subliminator, Jordan? What do you think of that?
Well, it's interesting. So maybe you can clarify the technology. So what we do is it looks like you're almost strapped into like a lie detector, but what it is it shoots like a digital screen in front of your face that flashes images really quickly. And what it's doing is subliminally adding information that you now know so that you are a better time cop because you know all the ins and outs of a specific time period, correct?
That's it. That's what it does.
But it doesn't seem like Jack really retains any of that, does it?
I think what it is it just like enters his brain and he doesn't realize it's there because he's like not that self-aware.
Right. But I'm saying like it's not like he went back to the 1880s in this episode and in the next episode, the 1970s. It's not like he ingratiates himself smoothly.
Well, I don't think it allows you to do that.
So I don't know if it helps at all. Then.
Just gives you headlines, the top news of the day.
Yeah, it does. It gives you headlines.
It's just like reading Wikipedia, basically.
Right.
But you're right, though. As you've said, Jack Logan's not going to use it because he thinks learning is dumb and that you should just trust your instincts.
Yeah, he's a archetype, as I've mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, that we've seen time and time again, and it's so tired. And I think it was already tired at this point in 1998 of just this guy is like, I just go by my own rules, and thus I'm cool. But he hasn't done anything to make you, to justify you as a viewer liking him, other than his teeth are like creepily white and his hair is very spiky.
It's especially funny in the show where his job on the show is to not alter timelines. So like his only job is like very precision careful maneuvering, and this character is like, I play by my own rules. Like those two jobs that they don't work together.
Yeah, I'd be like, I guess we'll send someone else.
At any rate, an alert comes in. There's a level 3 time ripple occurring in 1888.
Yeah, how many levels do you think there are on those time
I
ripples?
had that exact same question. I was like, how deep? How many levels can we get to?
I bet it's 7. This seems like a 3 out of 7.
Yeah, this was about a 3 out of 7. That's pretty low, if anything.
Well, Jack the Ripper only was going to kill 5 people or something like that, and this guy wants 5-fold.
The chief historian who works at the Timecop office, Dr. Ale Easter, does a quick, essentially, Google search on his computer.
That's right.
And he pulls up what is essentially a Wikipedia entry where he says that the entry's been changed to say that Jack the Ripper's 4th victim was found next to the body of Dr. William Gull, who this historian then goes, and I've studied the case of Jack the Ripper, and I personally have decided that he was the real Jack the Ripper.
Yeah, the show basically says that was the Ripper because, as we saw in the first scene, this guy comes in, kills Jack the Ripper. The woman thinks she's saved. Then he kills her as well because he's now taken over that place. And so now he's altered history. So there's 2 dead bodies that have adjusted the newspaper.
I also like that they sort of mention in the opening credits, they're like, you know, it's the future. There's time travel. Somehow criminals have it. So they go back in time and we got to stop them. Like, there's no explanation for how anyone's doing this. They're just like, criminals have it, I guess.
Well, we can say it in this one. We find out later on that this guy is not, because this takes place in 2007.
Yes.
That's the future in this show, going back to 1888 or whatever it is. But then we find out later on in the 3rd act that the villain in this is from 2020 something. Like he's from further in the future.
I think 2027.
Yeah. And they're just like, yep, that's weird.
That happens sometimes when you're time traveling. At the Timecop office, they also have a classic captain, Captain Eugene Matuzik, played by the one of the dads from the 70s show. Not the one you know, but the other one, the one who lived next door.
Not Kurtwood Smith.
Yes, not him. And he basically orders Jack to make a time insertion and stop the new Ripper. And so Jack asks, he's like, what do you mean? Do I have to save the original Ripper? And his boss is like, no. You could just let him be dead still. And he's like, oh, okay. He's like, well, should I save his 5th victim then? He's like, nah, don't do that either. Don't save her. And Jack like reacts like, I don't think I can do that. And then like 3 minutes later, she's dead anyway. And I was just like, oh, so I thought the plot was going to be he saves the last victim because he can't do it.
They do sort of set it up that his morality or his integrity is greater than his desire for his job or the ripples that will affect in history. That's what they sort of play it up to. And you're like, oh, he's going to just, as a guy who plays by his own rules, he's just going to, he's going to have this moral quandary of whether he should save this woman or not. Sort of like that Star Trek episode, the original series, whatever that episode was called.
Yeah. Instead, he shows up and she's already dead. Like he shows up,
dead.
and he's like, "Oh, she's dead. Oh, sorry, my bad."
Yeah, exactly. And now you make an interesting point, and I'm never going to let you finish this because I'm just going to keep nitpicking at this thing. The time travel in this. Now, time travel's tough. It's always weird, and you have to kind of make your rules, and it becomes challenging, especially when you have this sort of thing where you're going back to try to stop something, and they're always like, well, don't do this and don't do that because you'll change time, where we all know if this was actually possible, you'd be changing time constantly. You'd be changing the future because of the most minor things, the whole butterfly effect, right? But they sort of like just try to like walk their way over it. Like you mentioned with the Ripper, they're like, he's like, should I try not having him die? They're like, he died 6 months later, so it's fine. I was like, yes, but there's 6 month window you have now. There's a 6 month window that's missing in history.
That's what I like about this series is like the timeline of this series. It's a little more robust than you think. It can take a few hits and nothing really changes.
That's a very good way of saying it. You're just like, don't worry, it'll be fine.
It's like I know it looks fragile, but it's actually a lot tougher than you'd think.
Yeah, it's almost to the point where like we don't need these time cops.
And how would you describe the time machine they take back to 1888?
It's interesting. So again, I don't really remember the movie, but what it looks like is almost like a little mini plane with no wings that's on a track.
Yeah, like a jet cockpit.
Yeah, exactly. And it very similar to that. And you kind of strap yourself in like you're in a plane, and the cockpit window comes down the same. And then here's something that I don't understand. To shoot you off into time or to a different time, I guess they program it in. There's a guy we've seen occasionally in a chair. I think he's running it maybe. There's like a guy who's like hooked into the chair in the middle of the room.
Oh,
Maybe,
you mean the discount precog from Minority Report?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so they go into this chair, and then like it shoots you down this tunnel of lights, very similar to how in Space Above and Beyond they kind of launch their ships.
Yeah, it seems to be like a Back to the Future rules. Like you have to hit a certain speed to get like time velocity.
Well, great. I'm all for that. But see, Back to the Future had an out, which is you hit whatever it was, 77 kilometers an hour, or whatever. I can't remember what it is. And but then in the past, you just had to do that to get back to the future again. And the whole thing was getting the fuel, right? But this, you use this machine to get into the past. That machine somehow miraculously disappears when you enter the past. Then you have a watch that you could just open a portal and go back into the future. But when you go back to the future, you're back in the ship again.
Yes. You take,
how does that make sense?
You take the cockpit into the future through a little wormhole. Mm-hmm. The cockpit does not come with you. It just drops you, the individual human being, just like out of the ceiling, I guess, into a lady's bed.
In this case, yes.
And then when it's time to go, you look at your fancy wristwatch, you push a button, a time hole opens up, you jump into it, and then back in your time, you're now seated back inside the jet, landing back in the tunnel.
But that was weird, like, because I thought the same thing. I'm like, oh, I guess it needs to hit like a certain velocity or something. But it's like, nope. I was like, so why don't you just use that watch to get there? Isn't it easier?
No, you can't. You got to use the cockpit. It's the only way.
Okay.
How are you going to get back? If you don't use the cockpit to get there, what are you coming back on?
Oh, the watch seems to do it all. I don't know.
No, it's very funny. I think that's a complaint from the movie that it like literally makes no sense how why there's so much like frou-frou around this weird shuttle that doesn't work anywhere else but this tunnel for some reason.
Yeah. Anyways, that's how time travel works in this.
Great. Anyway, as I've said,
done. That's done. Don't worry about it now.
Go. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Lands in 1888. Fights some lady's husband after he lands in bed with her. Logan steps out into the streets. He's like, I gotta find Jack the Ripper. And then he just hears a scream. The fifth victim's dead. He chases after this new Ripper, gets in a little fist fight with him in an alleyway. And then this woman, Ann Thompson, like seems to accidentally step out of her like house at that exact moment holding a lantern. And because future Ripper is wearing night vision goggles, it hurts his eyes.
That's right. He like whips him off because he gets distracted for a moment. Jack sort of lunges for him, and all he gets is his pocket watch before he kind of stumbles. And so the guy gets away, but he's got his pocket watch, and he hasn't caught the villain.
Yes, and then the 1888 police arrive, and Jack Logan's arrested on the spot.
Yeah, because he looks bad because the woman's dead, and he's right there. And you know what's weird about it? There was never any sense. No, I should say this show moves at a real clip. Like it moves very fast, and it feels fast. Like they don't waste time. Like it's dumb, but they don't waste a lot of time with like shoe leather. But Jack, there was never a sense that there was any real peril or any real danger. He never acts acts like he's worried at all. Like he's not really smarmy, but he's sort of like just this side of sarcastic and kind of like devil may care at all times. And it's like, you would be very worried. You're caught by police in the 1800s and you were caught red-handed over a murder and you have no way out. And he's just like, whatever, Tuesday.
You just gotta trust those instincts, Jordan.
I guess.
If anything, he's true to his own character. Nothing phases him. He's just like,
nothing phases him.
I guess I'll just figure out how to get out of this using my instincts.
Yeah. But he doesn't even seem to like to have that moment of like, I guess I better figure it out. He's just like, guess it's gonna work out.
No, I think for his instincts, he means he just like is a dumb guy who just sits back. It's like, well, I guess this will work out, right?
Yeah, exactly, which it does.
Scotland Yard investigator Wells shows up, and he's a little less quick to point blame, but he is still like quite suspicious of Logan. And Ann Thompson, of course, comes out and like vouches for him, saying, "Oh, he didn't do it. He was like fighting the actual Ripper." But of course, Inspector Wells is like, "I would never believe the words of a prostitute." So he drags him back.
I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah. Well, probably true to the time.
Yeah, probably true.
He drags Logan back to the prison, and they have like a weird little conversation about like Logan is just like telling him all the stuff about the Ripper. He like knows way too much. He knows all the victims' names. He knows like all the methodology.
He sort of unintentionally incriminates himself, but again, there's no real consequence for this. Like it almost is played to the point where it's like, oh no, he's put his foot in his mouth because he's said too much. But it's just like, nah, I'm a time traveler. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it seems like the more he says, like Wells is suspicious, but he's also like, I also respect him for this.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is one of the many parts where when he talks to this guy, he'll like, it's so funny about Logan. He just like starts talking about these energy knives. Like he doesn't have any problem telling anyone from the past about anything from the future. And this is when Inspector Wells, if you hadn't already caught on to what was probably going to happen, he's just like, you sound like my nephew, H.G. Wells.
It was so stupid. I'm just gonna say right off the bat, that loses a point. It's so stupid it has to lose a point just off the bat.
No, you gotta strap in, because I think every episode is gonna be cameos by your favorite historical figures.
Oh, it's so bad. It's just so ham-fisted.
Jordan, you wanted it. You got it. Anyway, whatever. Logan's tossed in a cell, and since it's 1888, and I guess police work differently, no one's confiscated the pocket watch he took off the Ripper.
It's just coincidence. He has to still have it because he has to play with it. And then basically the reason he has to play with it is so that he can find out that it's a time-traveling pocket watch.
Yeah, it opens a time hole, like his own watch.
And exactly. And so he's like, he knows this guy's a time traveler now. And
at that moment, the future Ripper, he blows open the front door with a laser shotgun and starts like blasting English bobbies left and right to get his pocket watch back from Logan.
Yeah, and then it's just so weird because the confrontation is basically like, "Where's Jack?" And Jack's like, "I'm over here," and then he like blows his way in, and then they like argue about watches for like 2 minutes before Jack just like throws it out the window.
Well, this is where they discuss his motivations for killing all these people.
That's right.
I have another note here about why he's doing it, Jordan. I believe he says he's trying to improve history. So there you go.
Okay. Again, I just don't know how he gains anything from it. It just doesn't.
He's improving history. That's all the motivation he needs.
So it's like your favorite person is Chairman Mao. You've made that very clear, and you would like going back in the past and having Chairman Mao kill more people because you want him to be respected.
Yeah,
more.
I think that's the thing that would improve his legacy.
He's not a big Chairman Mao fan, everyone. Don't send him emails.
I'm not a fan of his politics, just his murders.
It was very effective.
Anyway, in all the kerfuffle, Jack the Ripper has blown a hole in the wall of the prison, and like after they have this big like conversation about why you're doing this, and like I'm a cool guy, no, I'm a cool guy. Jack just leaps out of the hole into the 18th century Thames River, and I assume gets dysentery for his trouble.
They kind of try to make a joke about it because he shows up later and he's all kind of still wet, and he's like, "You wouldn't believe what I had to do to get here," and she's like, "Ooh, you stink," and that's like, yeah, he swam in a dirty river. We didn't see it.
You were rolling in the aisles.
Yeah.
Anyway, he immediately heads to this Anne's house, and turns out when he gets there, she's quite good at drawing, which gives Jack a little idea.
And the idea is, what if we have like a 5-minute montage in the middle of this episode that will not stop? and it's Jack playing with like graphite and her drawing, and it just goes on and on and on.
She's going to draw a sketch of this Ripper she saw that night with Jack, and they're going to sell the sketch to a tabloid. And while she's doing that, this is what you're mentioning, Jordan. In the montage, he's grinding graphite down so he can pull a fingerprint off of the pocket watch. And I didn't entirely know where this was going until we cut back to 2007. The time ripple is getting worse.
Very clever.
It's level 6 now. This time ripple. The historian Dr. Casper, during his Google searches, finds another newspaper anomaly. This time it's a tabloid that has changed its front page, and this time it's a sketch of Jack the Ripper with a little watermark on it that says Logan Graphics. So they're like, uh-oh, this must be a message
left us
from
a
the
message.
past.
Yep. And then they're like, let's do a different scan, and it scans in a different way, and they're like, go to quadrant 6. That looks like a fingerprint. Hey, he also left a fingerprint. That Jack is so clever. He really follows his instincts.
He truly does. And they search that fingerprint up in their database and find out it belongs to a man named Ian Pascoe. But in 2007, he's a 13-year-old boy who just killed his foster parents and disappeared.
Yeah, you find out at this point that he's a kid because he's actually from the future's future, and he's not a criminal yet. Except for he killed his foster parents.
Yeah. I do like that they're like, we should just get this kid therapy right now and solve. And they're like, no one can find him. They're like, oh, well, fuck it then.
Yeah, that's it. Well, that's the thing, and it's like, I know it gets overly complicated, but if you're going to make it a time show, you really can play with time, right? Like, what if that becomes the secondary plot? Them in 2007 trying to find this kid to then affect the past because everything they do to the kid should adjust him as to what's happening with Jack. Like, it starts getting complicated, but like, you can play with it.
Wait, Jordan. Are you saying you want to give the 3 other characters left in 2007 something to do?
Something to do?
No.
I know.
No, thank you.
We should stop and say this, too. This is something that, on a lot of these unsuccessful shows or shows that didn't make it or only had one season, this is a running problem, which is this isn't even that large a cast. This is like a cast of 4. But a cast of 4, 3 of them they don't know what to do with. They all just stand over the same computer screen, and then they kind of talk about what Jack is doing. It's like, oh, this is something. This is not good, guys. Like, have some other plot happening.
You know what Jack is doing, Jordan?
What's that?
He's getting rearrested and being interviewed again by Inspector Wells.
That's right.
This time, Wells wants to see that pocket watch because the inmate he was locked up with had some strange properties. And of course, Wells starts fingering up that watch and opens his own time hole and is like, "Oh no, you are from the future."
And then here's what's weird. There's a bit of a turn, and I don't know if it's exactly here, but he's basically just like, well, you seem all right. I guess you'll just be out of jail and help me solve this crime.
Yeah, he's seen a time hole. He knows he's a time traveler from the future. Another cop here to catch Jack the Ripper.
It seemed like he maybe needed more, but...
No, because he said, I owe my nephew H.G. Wells an apology.
That's right.
Anyway, some constable walks in and gives them word that Anne has been kidnapped from her house by the Ripper, and they race back to Anne's house, and what they find is the Ripper has left a riddle on the wall, just like the Ripper always does, writing riddles on the walls of his crime scenes.
Yeah, and what was this about? Once the hands come together, people die, something like that?
Yeah, when the hands come together, she dies, Jordan.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, clock, I got it.
Could you possibly be at Big Ben?
But you know what the funny thing is about it? It's like most people could probably figure that out within a few seconds. But then because they don't trust the audience at all, they also have to have not one but 3 pictures of Big Ben right under it. I'm like, well, he's just told you what the answer is. It's a clock. And then he's also pointed out which clock it is.
I know, and it doesn't take them long. It doesn't take them any. It basically is a pause. They solve it, and then hard cut. You're at the top of Big Ben. There's no waiting around in this show. It's just let's get to Big Ben right now.
And I kind of wish this had looked a little better because there's this sort of almost Silver Age thing that I like, which is you're fighting on a big clock and there's gears and stuff. And that's kind of fun, and it's not really what they do. That there's a little bit of it in the background, but it's not really what they're going for.
Yeah, well, that's not the budget they have.
No.
Jack arrives. He's left Inspector Wells to go fetch his nephew for some reason, so he's not there anymore. And they have a big confrontation, him and Pascoe. Pascoe has somehow, in the past, created an exploding collar, complete with digital countdown and digital pin pad on it. He strapped this exploding collar around Anne's neck, and he has till midnight to hand over the pocket watch, or they all explode, basically.
Okay, question. So besides this, the oddness of him taking the time to build this bomb and whatever, he's done that. But is he counting this as one of his murders? Because don't you think everyone would not think this is a Ripper murder, that he's going to blow this woman up and part of Big Ben?
Yeah, I don't think he thinks. I think this one won't count to his Ripper total.
Okay, so he has an ulterior motive for other murders.
I mean, he'll do other murders, but it takes some finesse, Jordan, to make it look like a Ripper murder.
Right, because he's doing it again
to improve history.
Right.
You understand.
I got it. Makes sense.
Anyway, Jack won't hand over the watch, so they get in a real fist fight real quick. He's just like, no, I won't hand it over. Let's fight instead.
Now, this you're gonna get to the scene where he's got to defuse it, but they didn't leave themselves any time for any real tension.
No.
Is this the dumbest defusing of a bomb of all time?
Well, it's very funny because they're gonna fight. Jack drops the pocket watch. The time hole opens on its own. Jack's like choking out Pasco. He's like, I'm gonna kill you. He's like, what's the code? And Pasco's like, I'll never tell you. It's the date you catch me. And then Pasco breaks free, leaps through the time hole so he can escape. And Jack runs up to the necklace as it's about to explode. He's just like, he doesn't think I'll ever catch him. And then he doesn't show us what he pushes, but I just assume he pushes 0.
He just pushes zeros.
Yeah.
So it's just 0. The thing is, he's never going to catch him. But again, there's no tension. And even in the performance, the actor doesn't give anything. He's just like, I never catch him. 0, 0, 0. I was like, oh, well, I'm glad we saw this. Thanks.
Anyway, cut to 10 minutes later. Inspector Wells has showed up. He's picked up his nephew, H.G. Wells. So H.G. Wells is now hanging around. And one of my favorite lines of this thing is Logan looks over. He's like, is that your nephew, H.G. Wells? And says that he's, quote, always wanted to meet H.G. Wells. I was like, there's no way. There's no way you've always wanted to meet H.G. Wells.
Maybe he thought it was someone else.
Like, can you say, like, of course, if you had the opportunity, you'd be like, oh, that'd be cool to meet H.G. Wells. But there's no way you'd be like, it's been on my bucket list. Meeting H.G. Wells my whole life.
It's not on mine. It's not on mine. I don't need to meet H.G. Wells.
Anyway, Logan says his farewells to everyone. She
kisses him. Yeah. He gets a kiss.
He gets a kiss. He introduces Anne to H.G. Wells, and you're left to wonder, are they going to fall in love? And I looked up H.G. Wells' wife's name. It wasn't Anne, so I was like, I didn't know where this was going. But Jack basically jumps in his time hole, goes back to the future, and when he gets there, the historian walks up to his desk and he's all mad. He's just like, you ruined my first edition copy of H.G. Wells' Time Machine. And he's like, why? And he opens it up. It's like, it's illustrated now.
Yeah, and you see that this woman now did illustrations because she had a different life, which again has irrevocably changed the future.
No, it's very flexible, this timeline.
and that's it. And you're like, oh, and then the weirdest thing, how this episode ends, and I can only assume is because we are going to see this villain again, or they're hoping to see this villain again, because they do a push in of the drawing that never ends, and it just keeps going and going. You're like, ooh, it's his face.
Yeah, no, it seems like he's gonna be the arch nemesis of poor John Pasco. No, wait.
Yeah, well,
John
we learned
Logan.
so much about
there
him.
We go.
Jack Logan.
Something. His name's something.
It's just like it's not a real name. It's like who's that writer? It's like a Lee Child character.
I did also like when he brings back the pocket watch and his partner's like, oh, where'd you get that old timepiece? He's like, it's actually from the future. And in this show, any future tech goes into this vault because we can't risk contaminating the time. They really make a big deal of showing you there's like a special place they put future technology so that they can't abuse it. And I'm just like, is this going to come back? Or like it's a real setup for something.
I also just like that in the future, they've gone back to pocket watches. Or does he just have the technology and he just planned better than Jack? Because we should say, when Jack comes back to the past, he's just wearing his leather jacket and stuff. He's like, I got to steal this guy's clothes. I was like, oh, is this going to be a thing every episode? Because that's what I thought it was going to be, like an Automan thing. It's not really in the next episode, but it seemed like that was going to be the running gag, that he's always in need of clothes.
He's a real Terminator.
Yeah, that's right. But not really.
No, I don't know. It's a very silly show that it's everything moves so fast. There's they just throw things at you and they're like, don't worry, we're still going.
Yeah, again, that's if there's a credit to be given to the show, it moves really fast. It doesn't drag at all. It's the fastest 40 minutes you'll ever watch.
All right, well, here's the ending summary for episode 2, The Heist.
We think Orsilli's gone back.
Going back where? The old country?
In time. To relive the robbery. Only this time your pal Damon's gonna keep the diamonds.
Do you mean if you go back in time, you can change history?
For starters.
You know, I think you guys are in a lot of trouble. Because the Orselli that I know was a serious piece of work, and I doubt that a quarter of a century in the can has improved his disposition one iota.
Accompanied by a retired detective, Officer Logan travels to 1977 to solve the mystery of a failed diamond heist. Jordan, it's Sunday, June 16th, 1977 in New York City.
And if they didn't tell you it wasn't 1977, you wouldn't know because it doesn't look like it.
A career criminal, Damon Orsilli, is robbing a diamond exchange in the middle of renovations. He uses 2 gas-filled grenades to knock out the people working there. And this is where I started getting very confused, because did those gas-filled grenades feel like they were from the future?
Okay, there's a couple things in this episode. This is the first one. I thought the exact same thing. I thought the plot is going to be there's a criminal who's time traveling. He's going back to the past because he has advanced technology, and he can beat current day technology because he's just more advanced. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. And I thought he'd be like, he's going to start in the 70s, then he's going to go to the 50s. He's just going to keep going back and just robbing banks and then come back to the future and be like, hey, look at that. It was easy. But it's not.
Turns out it was not meant to be future technology. It just was a prop that confused me. And he's actually just a guy in 1997 who robs. He's a career criminal.
1977.
77, thank you. The security guard manages to set off a silent alarm, and so Orsilli is forced to hide the diamonds as a police officer shows up. Dr. John Langdon, detective,
right.
not doctor, detective.
Yeah, Detective John Langdon. And let me just say this right off. We'll talk about it at the end of the episode. This is going to become a bit of like a whodunit or what happened. It's what happened to these diamonds. It feels like they forgot about it till the very end because the solution is so stupid that it's unbelievable. It's so stupid.
It is the thing they let linger a long time when they finally the final reveal is like you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, you're like, oh, anyone could have figured this out by all of the clues in front of you. But anyways,
you were talking about how Jack Logan is the most generic name on Earth. I love that in episode 2 they compare him with John Langdon.
I know.
They're the same name.
Hey, I'll give the show this. I think the casting of old John Langdon and young John Langdon was pretty good.
Yeah, they're pretty good. I mean, in the past, in 77, Detective Langdon catches Orsilli, but no one ever just solved the mystery of what happened to the $1 million of diamonds. We now cut to 1:30 a.m. at Timecop headquarters. Logan has been working 16-hour days for 2 weeks, a schedule Jordan wishes he had.
That's an inside joke just for you and me.
They don't need to know the details, but you work weird hours and bad hours.
Yeah, that's right. That's funny. I thought the same thing. I was like, 16 hours.
This is why you're so much like Jack. John,
me and Jack are the
Logan.
same. No, here's misturn number 2. What they think they're doing is they're developing the character of Jack, and you're going to learn something about him, which is he's a workaholic, and maybe he's missed something in life because he's dedicated so much to his job. Now, again, it's only episode 2. We don't really know that about him. They're telling us that he's so dedicated to his job. But up to this point, he seems like he's a devil-may-care sort of guy. But they're hinting that there's something more to him, and maybe he'll regret through these series of events how he sees himself. And they kind of button the episode with it, but they don't. But it's hollow.
I mean,
because they don't invest any time to it.
You see no reason he changes throughout.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like, it's just weird they put it in, but it's like, oh, it could have been something interesting there that, they hint at change even later on in the series where you realize, yes, he's good because of what he does, but there are repercussions in the rest of his life because of that. But that's not this show.
No, it's light, it's fun, it's fast.
Mm-hmm.
Jack Logan, Jack
Logan and John Langdon.
Jack Logan is convinced to take a break for a bit, but it's at this moment that like a level 1 time rip comes in. They call the entire staff in, and the historian is able to Google search publications from 1977. He doesn't see anything changed in the timeline, but when he's doing this Google search, he happens to come across a headline from 2007 about the criminal Orsilli, who was involved in the unsolved diamond heist, and how he's been paroled after 30 years in prison and has very recently disappeared.
Right.
And they're basically just like, oh, okay, well, that must mean because that diamond heist was demolished years and years ago, he must be going back in time to get his diamonds, I guess.
Yeah. again, kind of weird because this episode has odd motivations in some ways similar to the first episode, which is it's hard to tell how you're supposed to feel because everyone's motivations are muddled. So you're like, are they going back to the past to get diamonds so they're rich in the future? Or are they going back in the past to diamonds to affect their previous version of them so that their life adjusts? You know what I mean? Like, it's like, what?
Yeah,
Why?
I mean, as far as I can tell, Ursula seems to just be going back in time to get the diamonds and then come back to 2007 and be old with diamonds.
Yeah, that seems to be right.
And also, I like that it's a very small ripple started. They can't find anything in history about what's changing time. But they do see one headline that mentions a guy who got paroled and about this old diamond heist. And they're like, let's just put all our energy into that one lead.
Yeah, right. And so here's a weird thing comes up because what you're going to really quickly, they're going to basically decide, which I don't know why, that they should find the old cop who had this case and bring him out to help. And that's John Langdon.
Yeah, he's 3 months away from retirement.
That's right. But here's a weird thing about the world. So they bring him in. He comes into Timecop Central, whatever it's called.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like, who are you guys? They're like, we can't tell you much about it, but we're time cops and we time travel and we solve crimes in the future. And he's like, I think that's probably all I need to know. But then it's like, hold on, they're a secret?
I know. So they're like, we can't tell you it's top secret. And he's like, come on. They tell him everything. And he reacts so indifferent to all the information.
He's very blasé.
Like, whatever, I guess.
He's like, yeah, oh, so you solve crimes over time and you time travel? Seen that before.
He's just an old, bitter, divorced cop, Jordan. He doesn't care.
No, they also do a real tell that at the in this scene, whereas he's talking to them and he's got his hand up, and the one police goes something like, "Oh, do you need me to notify your wife?" And the guy doesn't say anything. He's like, "Oh, because I noticed you have a ring on your finger," which is a very weird thing to say to someone. But then the guy's like, "Forget about it," and you're like, "Oh, I guess that's gonna be something later on," because there's no reason for anyone to ever to mention that.
I know. Basically, what they they're like, "Hey, can you tell us about this criminal so we can catch him in the past?" And he's just like, "You're gonna need me if you're gonna go to the past. I'm the only one who knows the streets of 1977." And other than, I will say that they do have,
and they have that machine though. They have that machine that gives you all the information for 1977. You don't need him.
It's true. You don't need him. And the only one who really objects is Officer Hemming. She's just like, should we at least not give him a psych evaluation or something? They're like, nah. Just shuffle him into that machine. Let's shoot him into the past.
I love it because the only person who raises objection is the one woman, and they're all just like, forget it, woman. You don't know what you're talking about. Let the men do what they got to do.
It's very dumb. It's very dumb. Anyway, they hop back, and then as they're loading him into the time machine, they give him the one of the rules that I remember from the movie is that, like, if you bump into your other self, you can't touch because the same matter can't occupy the same space. So just be careful when you go back to 1977.
Right. Why is it that it's fine to be in the same room but you can't touch?
In the movie, the bad guy of that is killed by they push his like younger self into his older self, and he became like a T2 style more amorphous blob that like just gets gross and milty and then like ceases to exist.
Right.
You do not get that
I don't
in
mind
the show.
But I don't mind the rule. It's like, sure, that's fine. If you just keep it consistent, I'm fine with it.
And I mean, this show loves to it gets moving. It doesn't stop. Like they land at 77. They meet the village people.
Ugh. They name the village people. No, they don't meet the village people, Luke. They meet some people that look exactly like the village people, and then he's like, "You guys look like the village people," and they're like, "What a great name for a band," or whatever. And it's like,
Jordan, you better enjoy to love it because this is what we're gonna get. Every episode is gonna be a fun thing. He's gonna Forrest Gump his way across history.
Yeah, I really disliked it.
Meet the village people. They go visit one of Langdon's old informants, a guy who runs a hot dog stand, and then Langdon just beats him up on the street because it's the 70s and civil rights are for sissies.
Yeah, there's something kind of funny you can play with here, which is this cop who's getting to go back, for all intents and purposes, to his own past, but he's now the person he is, as time has gone on. But he's like, you know what? I remember what it was like in the 70s. I'm going to just beat these punks up. And there's something kind of funny about it, but it's also like, it's not played in that way. It's played in the like, can you believe how much cooler it was back then? Where you could just beat people up?
He's a man who's learned nothing in that 30 years.
Exactly, yeah.
They get some information from him. Basically, the detective already knew that Orsili had 3 possible safe houses. And so he asked this guy, like, which ones are the busiest. And by deduction, he's like, I think 2007 Orsili's probably at the quietest safe house or whatever. They go there. One of them goes in the front. One of them goes in the back to catch Arceli. He is there. There's a bit of a fight. One of them gets caught, but they end up, catching him and knocking him unconscious. And basically, 2007 Arceli is taken down very quickly.
Very, very quickly. Yeah, and I'll give the episode this. You think it's going in one direction, and then it makes a right turn, which is they essentially catch him right away. We're like maybe 10 minutes into the episode.
They just went back in time.
Yeah, they just went back in time. They catch him, and what, of course, the turn is that Langdon then pulls his gun out on Jack and is like, hey, I don't know you didn't know that, but I'm now corrupt, and I've been made bitter over time, and I really want the diamonds. So he takes off Jack's watch, puts it on Vasily, whatever that guy's name is.
Yeah.
Sends him back to the future, and then he handcuffs Jack to like a drain pipe, and he's like, all right, I'm going to go find the diamonds.
Smell you later.
Now, we should talk about a few things here, because we're going to get a bunch of scenes, and we're going to see young Langdon, and you're going to get motivations and stuff. But does it make sense where he's at?
Jordan, he's a detective. Detective Langdon. Much like Logan, he lives by his instincts. When some people pull you out of bed in the middle of the night, bring you to a Timecop office, explain that time travel's real, and you say, sure, why not? Send me back. I'm going to fucking steal those diamonds. Instincts, baby.
It's just, do you know what I mean? Like, it's just,
there's no time for him to plan any of this. It's just like, he shows up. He's like, you know what? I know I just found out time travel's real, but like, and I've just gone back with the only person who knows how it works.
Yeah, I can kind of take advantage of this.
I think he's like, I know an opportunity when I see one.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Again, I don't mind him as like the villain, as kind of like that was the red herring in the beginning. I think that all kind of works. It's just that this show moves so fast, which is such an odd critique to have, or odd criticism, but that they don't give time for anything. So you're like, none of these motivations make sense at all.
It's like the opposite of Misfits of Science. It's like that show where so little happened, but there was so much confusing plot. This is like, they sat down and were like, what's the minimum information we need to push this forward? Great, that's all we're saying.
Yeah. So Jack's now tied to a drain pipe. We found out that for whatever reason, Langdon has some bone to pick and some regret, and he wants to get these diamonds. And Jack's going to get out like in the next scene.
Yeah.
Like this, it doesn't mean anything. He basically, they leave the gun there, so he's able to get the gun and then blow his handcuffs off. This basically happens in 10 seconds.
Logan immediately drops in on young 1977 Detective Langdon, who's still happily married, but we can tell that his stress of his job is starting to put cracks in his marriage.
Yeah. She's basically like, you're home for you haven't been home for a long time. Maybe it's the time for a little smooching. And he's like, sorry, babe, I'm a detective. You know what it's like.
Logan shows up. He explains he's from some sort of like, I don't know, secret department inside of his department.
That's right.
And the guy's like, okay, I buy that.
Checks out.
And then this off-duty cop who's at home with his wife receives a phone call to tell him an armored car is being robbed. Just apropos to nothing. They're just like, hey, just wanted you to know. Armored car being robbed. I know you're off duty and it has nothing to do with you, but it's being robbed. So just so you know, him and Logan jump in a car, drive over there. They're the first to arrive at the scene of this robbery.
Yeah, and again, the reason they need it to is because who's clearly robbing it is old Logan, who's using the laser gun to Langdon. Oh yeah, jeez, Langdon to cut to the back of the car so we can have this like, the two can meet is basically what happens. And I'll tell you, I did like the part where like what we're gonna get is a lot of like, I'm you. What? How could you be that? We can't touch.
They don't waste any time. There's no like they show up. He's like, hey. He's like, yeah, I'm you from the future. So like, I'm here. Don't touch. Like they just there's no like hemming and hawing. They just like everyone just like states the fact the minute they meet. There's no reason for like confusion.
Yeah, but I do like the part where they're like kind of shooting at each other, and the young Langdon gets cut in the face, and then immediately a scar appears on old Langdon's face. I was like, yeah, all right.
Yeah. That's I think that's one of the glory shots from the original Timecop movies. Like someone gets a scar and you get to see it appear on his face. It's a great move.
It's cool. Yeah. But even this scene, it's like it moves so fast. They eventually get the drop on him, but they don't. And the reason is just like he's a faster draw than Jack, and then he gets away.
And he just runs away. And my favorite part is as I was watching, I was like, wait, why is he robbing an armored car? And then they explain it's like, oh, I guess he's trying to rob the diamonds before they get to the diamond exchange. It was just like, why wouldn't you just do it at the place where you know what happened? Why would you try to rob it on the way to the place?
Yeah, it's just because they needed a couple more scenes.
Anyway, back in 2007, The cops have finally decided to look into Langdon's background now that this criminal is shown back up and without his escorts. And they realize that Langdon is bad, and they're like, oops, our bad.
Yeah, they're like, oh, he's got real problems, and he was like investigated, and he's not a good cop. And they're like, yeah, I guess we should have looked at that. Oh well, oopsie daisy.
Yeah, they're like, should we help Logan? And they're like, it'll be fine.
Okay, so now can we talk about this? Because I think it's going to happen in a couple scenes, but what we're basically going to learn, and I think there was, again, this is another misturn for the show, is what you think his motivation should be is that what you've learned is this case was really bad for him because he solved who did the robbery, but because they never found the diamonds, he got investigated by internal affairs. It sort of put a black mark on his record, and he never achieved what he could have achieved as a police officer. His wife left him. His life kind of fell apart. That's what we're going to learn.
Right.
Fair enough. Great. That's interesting kind of backstory. But I don't know if it makes sense what he's doing, because he's going back into the past to get diamonds to bring them back to the future so that his life is still crummy, but now he has a bunch of stolen diamonds. Whereas you would think, because they kind of play it up that his wife is sort of long-suffering and she's a good woman and he's not treating her properly, and thus because of that she leaves, and he has this regret of who he was and that he had a missed opportunity with this woman. But it is almost inconsequential, because shouldn't that be what he's trying to do? You would think he'd go back to the past to try to convince himself to not blow it. Or even grosser, he goes back to the past because he wants to steal his wife and bring her. Or, you know what I mean? Like, there's just something, I think, to be done emotionally there. And instead they go, no, he just would bring diamonds back with him. I'm like, but
yeah, no,
what's he going to do with the diamonds in the future?
He's an old man who regrets the loss of his one true love, and the only thing that will fill that hole is millions of dollars in diamonds.
I know, but it's just like, not going back to the past. If you're someone who's suffering from a broken heart and it has changed everything in your life, and then you have a chance to fix that, that makes sense. But you're like, you have a chance to fix it. I guess I'll get a bunch of money. You're like, what? How do these two things, they don't go together at all.
This show does not care about character motivations that conflict at all in any way with the single plot they're hoping to pursue.
Right. Again, I'll just say, the plot for him is the motivation should be the love that he lost. I mean, maybe it's cliched. Maybe it would be clumsy.
Yeah, I mean, that would make you feel emotions for him. But no, it's just a show about a man who wants diamond. Want diamond, please.
He want diamond. So there you go. So all this stuff with the wife, by the way, who I actually think is pretty good, has a pretty good performance, it doesn't matter at all. There's no need for any of these scenes.
All meaning is that what happens is Langdon and young Logan and young Langdon return back to his house to discuss what to do and like talk about ambushing old Langdon when he gets the diamond exchange. So when they get there, old Langdon has already arrived. He's taken his young ex-wife hostage, and he's like, well, I'm going to take her to the diamond exchange and steal the diamonds now. Bye.
Yeah, and I think this is the scene where they say it at around this point where they're like, Jack says, I think to the wife, like, don't worry, the future's fluid.
Yes.
Is what he says. Like, things are a little bit malleable. And I'm like, okay, if that's the rules. But it's like, but is it?
Jordan.
Is that how it works?
Haven't you seen how fluid this timeline is? You can kill Jack the Ripper, like, it doesn't mean anything.
I know, it's just, it's like, I get that they're doing it as a hand wave over stuff, but it's like, but it also makes everything you're doing pointless because it's fluid. What does it matter?
I couldn't tell you, Jordan. You got those ripples. It's fluid. There's ripples.
I don't know why I'm getting so worked up about this show.
There's ripples. It's fluid. It all lines up, Jordan.
It's just. Yeah. Anyways, I can't remember where. So they go. Yeah, he brings his wife with him to. But although, don't you think there's a scene missing too? Don't you think there should be a scene where his young wife, and she's looking into the future, physically looking into the future of what her husband becomes? Isn't there a scene there of like a heartbreaking scene of what's happened to you, this man I love? Look at you now. You're bitter. You've changed. That's not in this at all.
Yeah, but it doesn't drive the plot forward. So cut it.
Yeah.
Well, doesn't it make sense? He comes, he kidnaps his young ex-wife, but there's no reason for it because he's just going to go to he's going to interrupt the old diamond. Like, she has no purpose. Like, she's not a hostage that's preventing it.
Yeah, it's just, it doesn't.
They need her to be there at the end for a big confrontation.
That's right.
Young Orsili, who's still in, the actual original guy, goes through with the original diamond heist we saw at the beginning, except
the young version of it.
Yeah, except this time, old Langdon shows up and prevents the silent alarm from being triggered. Old Langdon reveals very late in the game, very late in this whole thing, he's like, young Arcelius, I know how you finally did this diamond heist. You snuck in because of renovations. He's like, you know how I know? And he reaches his jacket and pulls out a paperback copy of a true crime novel about the diamond heist that I guess he carries with him at all times.
You know, I had a question. Did the Vasily or whatever his name, did he write that book, or is it just a book based on that case?
It's just a different author. It's completely unrelated to him. It's just like someone wrote a book about it. And for a man, like this is all spur of the moment for old Langdon. He got woken up, thrown in a time machine, and gone back in time. And he's just like winging it as he goes. He just happens to walk around with his paperback about the robbery.
Yeah. And also, it doesn't matter that he has the book. What is it? It doesn't matter.
It doesn't, because it's like it wasn't hard for Arceli. It's not like Arceli had some secret way in. He literally walked through the front door.
Yeah, he walked through the front door and then threw these like flash grenades.
And so it's very funny. They end up having a conversation for a bit about that, and they're like, "Hey, where'd you hide the diamonds? We never did figure it out." And Arceli's like, "What?" He's like, when you hear that car pulling up, like imagine you heard that car pulling up. What would you do with the diamonds?" He's like, "Oh, I would just throw them to that wet cement right there." And that was the big reveal. Is like he just threw them in some wet cement on the ground in front of him.
Well, what's annoying is in all this, the beginning of the episode when we see this first happening, is this the same scene replicated again, but now with these older characters there? We never saw that the building was really under maintenance. We never saw this wet cement. So it's not like you could have decided this or figured this out as a viewer. And also, if you were a police officer and you showed up and you said, the guy's caught, I can't, where are all the diamonds? And you look and you see a big pool of wet liquid.
Clearly
cement,
disturbed by someone jamming something into it.
I'd be like, I think they probably threw the diamonds in there.
Yeah, I think you would have figured it out very quickly.
Yeah, like I'm not a detective, but come on, guys.
At any rate, young Arceli tries to attack old Langdon. Langdon knocks him out. And after he knocks him out, while he was talking, somehow Logan and young Langdon have surrounded them inside of the building.
Because they have this running joke about, like, it's cop policy, back door, front door. They keep saying that every...
One of us goes to the front, one of us goes to the back, and it works every time.
Yeah.
It does. It does work every time in the episode.
It does work.
There's like a big thing where the wife tries to talk old Langdon down. And again, like you said, she's like, time's fluid, maybe we can still make our marriage work and like all this stuff. And I was just like, that's not really helpful to old Langdon. Like, you can maybe make your marriage work out with this young guy, but like, it's like, even if he goes back in time now and he gets there and him and his wife are somehow still married, like, he still is a bitter old cop for 30 years.
Exactly.
He gains nothing.
That's an interesting idea. Like this, even the futility of trying to change things. Because, like, let's say this whole thing was about him going to the past to try to fix stuff and go, I'm going to make the world better and I'm going to make my life turn out the way I like. He actually does it. He accomplishes it. He does terrible things to achieve his means because that's more important than anyone else. He gets back to the future and he has everything he wants, but he's still the same guy. He's still this grumpy old horrible person who's still gone through, because we are what our experiences are. I mean, I know that's maybe a little too deep for the show, but I'm like, that's interesting. This is not.
Yeah, I mean, that's not what they're interested in getting into at all. I mean, I guess they're just saying, if you get shot in the face when you're young and get the scar when you're old, don't worry, all your brain scars will change.
Yeah.
Anyway, while they have this long conversation, young Arcelius comes to, grabs a gun, and just open fires at random. And just starts shooting at them.
He shoots like 50 times.
Yeah, he shoots so many times. The young Langdon shoots him, wounds him, disarms him. He gets rearrested as per usual, as it was supposed to happen. Mm-hmm. And in the whole kerfuffle of all the shooting, I didn't see it happen. I don't know if it did.
I didn't either. You don't see Langdon get shot.
They turn around, they're like, oh no, old Langdon shot. And I'm like, is he?
I know. I didn't know he was shot. I didn't know where he was shot, but it's so he can have like a very long death scene of them kind of talking as he sits there. And then do you notice he just fades away like a Jedi?
Yeah, it's so weird. Like, he sort of apologizes, but not really. He gives Logan back a time watch so that he can get out of there. And then when he dies, he just like fades out of existence for some reason. I was like, but why?
Well, here was my question. Because we see him fade out of existence and his clothes and everything go with him. But before that, he gave Jack the watch. Would the watch have faded away with him, or would it have dropped to the ground?
I have no way of knowing, Jordan.
Because the watch wasn't really part of him that went back into the past. That was my assumption.
But no, he was wearing the watch when he went back, wasn't he?
No, because he's taken Jack's watch, because two people can apparently go into the same watch.
No, because remember, Jack had to put his watch on Arcili to send him back, so Jack was
you're
stranded
right.
in time.
You're right.
So Jack
I
had
don't
no
know
way
that.
back. He couldn't open a time hole, Jordan. And two people can't use the same time hole. Everybody knows this. Logan then, jumps back through his time hole to go home, leaving young Langdon to, fix his marriage with his wife, and you get to see a newspaper. He gets back, and the first thing that you do is they pick up a newspaper, and, the front of the newspaper that day is old Detective Langdon and his wife living a great life. They're on the front page.
Headline. They're doing all right.
So they're doing great, this couple that you just met. They're awesome. They're on the front page of the newspaper. And it's just well, it all worked out. Case closed.
Yeah, and then we get a button at the end where, Jack's to the ladies, hey, let's go to dinner or something. And she's like, didn't you love working? And he's like, maybe I've learned a little something about myself. And I thought, no, you haven't. And, even as a main character, you were barely involved. You didn't push the action forward at all. The action we saw didn't make any sense. I don't know what lesson I'm supposed to learn here.
You learned the obvious lesson, Jordan. Follow your instincts.
Yeah, that's what I learned.
Well, Jordan, I'm going to bring up one last thing. It's actually from the previous episode, and it was just they drop a line in the middle of it that I thought was going to become a plot point when he goes back to 1888.
What's that?
Detective Hemming says that they've never had anyone go back so far and stay there for so long.
Oh, that's right.
And that the effect might be molecular. The effect might be the breakdown of his molecular structure. I believe they use the example of he'd be crushed like a temporal grape.
Yeah, they basically imply they're adding this sort of it's supposed to be a tension or a stopwatch to the thing that he can only be there so long. It's only going to take him so long to solve this murder or whatever he's doing in the past. But they don't push that at all.
It's just a factoid dropped midway through that has nothing to do with what you're going to see in the action. And I keep wondering, there's the vault they put all the future tech inside of. I'm like, is this set up for the future? Which doesn't feel like what this show does at all. But I'm like, maybe
you might be right,
because they have a character named Pasco who I think they're he's going to be our arch nemesis. I'm like, are they seeding canon?
Well, it would be very bizarre if they are, with the haphazard way these episodes are written.
I know. It feels like it's meant to be it feels like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I guess. I feel like the creators of this were what's 45 minutes someone could put on in the background that's just so banal that it won't bother them. They'll know exactly what's happening, and they'll just it can just wash over them, and they won't have to work at all. That's what it feels like the intention was.
I agree. Yeah.
But then there's these little throwaways where I'm like, wait, are we going to do something more?
Well, it's odd to have created such a show, like you said, that seems designed just to, and I think that's a very good way of saying it, just sort of wash over you. But then it's time travel, the most complicated thing we could be putting in a television show, and they're just like, no, not the way we do it, guys.
Yeah, this is going to be the simplest time travel show you've ever seen.
Yeah, they're like, jets out, watches in, done. Anyway, you get squished like a grape. Matter? Nope.
Well, Jordan, you want to rate these?
Yeah, let's do it.
So the first episode, Rip in Time.
This episode didn't frustrate me as much as the second one, but I think it wasn't. I don't think it was as. I'll give the show this credit. I don't think it was as fun, and I just think going back to fight Jack the Ripper is dumb. I just think it's I'm tired of seeing this. It's not a very good show, I would say. I don't think there's too many things that redeem it. I feel bad that they have some pretty decent actors, I think, like Kurt Fuller and Don Stark, that aren't doing anything. I don't like the lead, and I'd give this a 3 out of 10.
3 out of 10. All right. Yeah, I mean,
it's bad.
I'm not saying it's not a bad show. It definitely is. I don't think I'm gonna enjoy watching many of them, but there was.
Do you think it's charming?
I don't even know if it's charming, but there's something I just found and maybe it's just coming off of we watched a show that was overly complicated with just so many characters, similar problems obviously, but this is almost the exact opposite. They're just listen, we're gonna make this the cleanest, least thought-provoking thing you've ever seen. We don't mind. We know it's not. We don't even mind. It doesn't make sense. We're just gonna keep going. It's just rush all the way to the end. Don't worry too much about anything.
It's like in the writer's room, there wasn't one writer who was like, hey, wait a minute, that's a good idea. What if we did this? That never happened. Some guy was just like, oh, diamonds. And they said, done.
Well, that's just it. It's like, it'd be crazy if like, he fixed it with his wife. It's like, oh, we'll just drop a line where he says, oh, time's fluid. And they're like, there, we got the concept you thought of across.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to give it a down the middle 5 because I'm like, it is bad, but at times it's kind of funny bad. And like, weirdly won't like hurt you too badly when you watch it.
I agree. I know I'm being really hard on the show, but like, let's be fair. This is a bad show, but
100%.
It's so harmless. Like, it's not. This is interesting. We've talked about some of these shows that sometimes are bad and they're hard to watch because they're a little bit mean spirited. This show isn't. It's not trying to be like anything. It's just like, it's there. It's so forgettable. It's so blasé. It's just nothing.
It's not trying to be mean. It's not trying to be smart. It's like, don't worry. It's not for smart people. Don't worry about it. Like, everything. It's
on TV.
Just
like, guys, it's just on TV. Don't worry about it.
You're going to have a fun time. 45 minutes. It'll be over before you know it.
Yeah, you're doing your laundry anyways. Don't worry about it.
All right. What about the heist, Jordan?
Now, I'm going to give this one actually a better score because I think it's a better episode. However, it's a much more frustrating episode, at least for me, because of all the missed opportunities. Because I think there's something quite sweet and quite poetic and quite interesting to us as humans and how we grow and how we change and who we become and the missed opportunities. And I think other TV shows have done better with this idea of trying to reconcile the past and trying to correct those things that may have actually made us who we are. That's not what this is. Wouldn't it be fun if this guy goes back in the past and he ends up being the villain and he gets diamonds? And I like a heist and it's kind of fun and stupid. I'll give it a 3.5.
3.5. Jordan, you just don't understand human nature. People want diamonds.
You know what I mean, though? It's like, there's something there.
No.
They just don't. It's just not this show.
It's very funny that the cliched version of this show is like what you're going to try, fixing the past. Like, that's what and it's not cliched because it's bad. It's just like, it's a thing that is emotionally resonant.
Correct.
And this show couldn't care less. It's like, hey, buddy, wouldn't you like some diamonds?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. It's like, they know you're like, hey, you all in your deepest, quietest moments have had some regret or have had this feeling of nostalgia or whatever it is. They're like, that's not what we're doing, guys.
No, you know what would fix that? Diamonds.
It's so bizarre.
Here's the thing. I think I just gave another 5 again because, like,
oh man, 5.
For all the dumb reasons we talked about, like, even just talking about it now, I hadn't even really clued into me as we were talking about it, that old Detective Logan's motivations are so, like, it's so funny to me that he got woken up, told time travel exists, shoved into a cart within like a 2-hour time span, and it ended up in 1977 unfazed. And then when he gets there, he's like, you know what? I bet I could rob those diamonds myself while I'm here. Like, yeah. So there's something about just how haphazard it all is that makes me laugh.
Again, not to belabor it, but can you imagine if they had just done a scene where they had him, this is a bad example. He's at the precinct and he's still talking about the diamonds. No one likes working with him because he's still focused on it. And he's ruined his life because he's missed this opportunity. He wishes he had got these diamonds. And then, by coincidence, this opportunity comes up. Then things start happening. And it's like, but they didn't even do that. It's just, yeah, you're right. It's just like, he woke up, was like, what?
That's the problem with it. And I think you're arguing for like a better version of it that makes a lot of sense. Yes. That fits all the themes they've built around the episode, which it's not that they're not there. They're just like given like no time to breathe. They're like, you're lucky if you get one line that mentions them. But part of me wants to watch the version of this that is just like this dumbest show on earth. I want to see more of this guy who's just like, time travel, like, gets back, like, I should rob. Like, I just want to see the version where, like, how do you create a character who just, like, is flying so far by the seat of his pants? He's like, now in 1977, he's like, I guess I could just rob those diamonds. I don't have a plan, but I brought this paper back with me.
I just also love how little Jack has to do in this episode. They have 4 major characters, and even their major character who took up all the screen time still doesn't have anything to do.
No, he's just along for the ride.
Yeah. So and that's Timecop, the series.
It's very funny, Jordan.
First 2 episodes.
I mean, I don't know if it's gonna have much staying power for sure, but the first 2 episodes were just so weird in a way that's so hard to describe.
Yeah, and well, I'll say this show knows what it is. It's all this. It's just a dumb show,
Yeah.
and it's just like it's a dumb show, and it hits that tone real well.
You don't feel like the people creating it don't know what they're doing. You feel like they know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah,
Like they're firing in all cylinders. They're like, we're nailing exactly what we're trying to do here.
yeah. We're making an forgettable show.
Well, Jordan, that wraps it up for this week's episode. You can get a hold of us, listener, at continuumdrag@gmail.com if you have any things you'd like to let us know about Timecop or anything else, really. And on Instagram and Twitter, I'll have some clips from the first 2 episodes of Timecop. The address there is @continuumdrag, and you'll see how the time travel works, I bet.
Yeah, it goes through a plane in one way and a watch on the way back.
Maybe a laser knife.
A little laser knife, and like they also had a bunch of laser guns that sometimes were lasers and sometimes were like bazookas.
They're from the future. They can do anything.
Yeah.
But that wraps up this episode. Listener, thank you for joining us. And Jordan, see you next week.
See you then. Diamonds. Continuum Drag is recorded in Toronto, Ontario. Theme music by James Rex Seidler. Produced by Jordan Dullock and Luke Black. Special thanks to Aaron Hughes.